Hi there, this is Donna Gibbs with Summit Wellness Centers, and we are here to talk about anxiety and the coronavirus. The question is coronavirus triggering your anxiety? Yes. Yes, it is. And there's so much discussion right now in the media about the physical response to the coronavirus, but we are not talking about the mental health impact of this virus and the media attention that is coming with it. And so we're going to have that discussion now. It's time to talk, right? So yesterday, because I'm involved with a board at one of our local hospitals, I had a couple of Skype meetings with some of their staff and see that they are, because they're on the front line, they are very busy right now, taking caution and taking responsible measures in order to best manage the potential introduction of this virus into our community. And when we think about anxiety, I would imagine that some of those staff are carrying a little bit of angst right now. They're trying to be very, very careful, trying to be very, very cautious. And that's actually a good thing. We're going to talk about that in a second. But what happens for most of us are not on that front line. Most of us are not working within the walls of a local hospital providing direct care to coronavirus. And so it's important to make that distinction because sometimes our responses might be turned up as if we were. But is coronavirus triggering your anxiety? Yes. And if you have a history of anxiety or a history of OCD, it has probably triggered this again and turned it up a volume. So why is this happening? We're gonna address two things in this video. Why are we having this response and what are we gonna do about it? Just really, really practical. So first, let's identify the problem. And this is gonna surprise you probably. And you might think I'm crazy, but here's my answer. What is the problem? The problem is not anxiety and the problem is not coronavirus. What in the world do I mean by that? You see, the evidence for coronavirus right now does warrant some intentionality, some caution, and some preparation. But the evidence that we have right now does not indicate the need for panic. So therefore, I would say coronavirus is actually not the problem if you're experiencing some anxiety. I'd also say that anxiety is not the problem. Why? Because God created us with the capacity to experience some healthy anxiety. Let's think about that. And a little bit of anxiety increases our awareness. It increases our focus and our caution. It increases our attention to detail. Really, those who struggle with a little bit of anxiety are the best employees ever because they don't miss things generally. They don't panic, but they don't miss things. They're very thoughtful, very careful, very focused. You know, when we think about it, we would want right now our physicians and our nurses and our medical staff team to have a little bit of anxiety because by God's design, a little bit is a really good thing. And that's also why I'd say anxiety is not your problem. Because by God's design, He designed us with that capacity, and it's a good thing. So if coronavirus is not the problem and anxiety is not the problem, what is the problem? The problem is when anxiety gets turned up too high. You ever heard that phrase, too much of a good thing is still too much? It's true. And when a good, healthy level of anxiety gets turned up here, it leaves us vulnerable to obsessive thinking and catastrophic thinking. Take that in. Obsessive thinking, getting stuck like a hamster on the wheel, and catastrophic thinking, getting stuck on the worst case scenario. And so those thoughts, those obsessive and catastrophic responses will lead to a physical response of anxiety in the body, a cascade of physical symptoms that you would think in regards to anxiety, the shortness of breath, the tummy issues, all of those things. Because the brain doesn't know if you are standing in front of someone with coronavirus or if you're just watching it on the news. The brain doesn't know, and that is why it's so important for us to make sure that our thought level matches our situation. Those catastrophic and obsessive thoughts will interrupt life and they will monopolize thoughts. And then they lead to irrational behaviors. And that's why we're seeing on the news pictures of stores with empty shelves and people hoarding toilet paper. It's irrational, and it all started with our thoughts. So when we fixate on a turned up catastrophic thought, we inherit an emotional reaction that is also turned up, and that is going to lead to a behavioral reaction that is also turned up. Our thoughts lead to our emotions, lead to our behaviors. And if your thought is turned up, your emotions are going to be turned up, and your behaviors are going to look irrational. If this is you that I'm speaking to, and you are wrestling right now with anxiety about this coronavirus, I'm going to tell you, you are inviting additional unnecessary suffering into your life. The coronavirus is not introducing that suffering. It is the turned up, anxious, obsessive, and catastrophic thoughts that are introducing that into your life. I don't think we can really understand the impact and the power of our thoughts. But I'll tell you this, and I believe this to my core, that every challenge of life presents us with the opportunity for a victory. And if you are wrestling today, I'm telling you, coronavirus is extending you an invitation for victory over some of the struggles in your thoughts, and for victory over anxiety. So every good counselor gives homework assignments, so here's some for you. I want you to start with thinking about the times when you are struggling the most about this situation and your symptoms are amped up. I want you to write down the thoughts, the top 3 to 5 thoughts that you're having in regards to coronavirus. I want you to literally write them down. Don't just think about them. I want you to write them down. That's important, because we don't see things the same when they're just in our brains that we do when they're on paper. So write that down, and then I want you to read that list and look at that list as if it weren't your list, as if it were someone else's. Allow yourself the gift of being objective. And then ask yourself, what do I see here? Are my thoughts based on fact? Do my thoughts reflect what I actually know about the coronavirus? Do my thoughts accurately reflect my faith? Do I notice any obsessive thoughts? Do I see the catastrophic worst case scenarios? Am I like a hamster on a wheel? Do I feel stuck? And then, because our thoughts do lead to our emotions, I want you to ask yourself, that list of thoughts, what emotional response are they creating in my life? And then ask yourself, what behavioral responses are they creating? Do I feel out of control? Am I out of control? Do I feel like I could be out of control? So ask yourself those questions, and then if you feel like any of that is turned up, then your job is to go back to those 3 to 5 thoughts that you've written down and tell yourself the truth. And you're going to have to work a lot, repetitively, to meditate on what the truth actually is and hold those obsessive and destructive thoughts captive. Next, a list of just a few other things that are going to be helpful for you. Be careful with your news coverage. You know, when I was growing up, we had the 6 o'clock news, we might have had a morning news, we might have had a lunchtime news. We didn't get all of those because we weren't available to, but the news was not inundating us 24/7. And now it is. And the news traditionally is going to be catastrophic. That is how they get our attention. It's sensational. And so if you are watching the news for hours on end, I can guarantee you, I will guarantee you, it will turn up your anxiety, which is then going to turn up your emotions, which is then going to turn up your behavioral response. You're not going to miss out on anything significant because things are being followed very, very closely. So from one day to the next, you'll get what you need. And I'm just going to encourage you to put some boundaries on that. Next, there's some things that can make it worse. So let's avoid caffeine right now. Let's avoid any unnecessary stimulants that are just going to amp up physical symptoms of anxiety. Next, let's add in exercise. Oh, it is good for whatever ails you. So it is good for your physical symptoms, for your immune system, but boy, is it a salve for the mental health struggles. That it triggers the neurotransmitters that release dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin. These are the mental health meds, my friends. So get out there at least 30 minutes, get some fresh air, get some exercise. If you're walking, walk like you're running late, and get that body moving. God designed our bodies for movement, and it is going to be really good for this struggle with anxiety right now. Next, focus on your breathing. Why? Because anxiety shallows our breathing. And what that does is prevent as much oxygen to the brain. So it's not working for us. Anxiety is not working for us. So intentionally work on deep breathing. And if you find that you're just so accustomed to that shallow breathing, then go ahead and put a timer on your watch to alarm you once an hour for the first day or so until you get used to it, to trigger you to do some deep breathing. Next, do a daily devotion. If you're not accustomed to being in God's Word, I can't encourage you enough to allow yourself to sit in some truth and be blessed by that, because it is a calming salve for you. And if all else fails, contact a professional. The good news right now is that professionals are going to be more accessible to you than they might typically have because of telehealth services, and it's at ease right now. And in regards to Summit, yes, we will have telehealth services available to help carry you through whatever struggle you've already been working on, as well as the anxiety that might get turned up in this season. There's my boy in the back, Jeremiah. You want to say hello?
Hey.
You want to say good morning? He's sleeping well. He's not wrestling with the anxiety of this thing right now. Hopefully we can all do the same, okay? God bless you, and I pray that this has been a helpful word of encouragement for you today.